We have a special treat for you. Jason Pye is back, and he's going to tell us all about why the government shutdown is so incredibly awesome from that libertarian point of view. Stay tuned. Peach Pundit, the podcast, is a conversation filled with the personal opinions of the people who are participating. Any view or opinion expressed belongs only to the person who expressed it and not with anyone with whom that person is professionally affiliated. It's way too early in the morning for us to be doing this, but our Patreons got an email like 30 minutes ago saying, hey, we're going to record at 10 a.m. on a Thursday morning. Sorry about that, folks. That the schedules these days have been really hectic, and we're going to try to do better about making sure we have at least some canned content. There are a couple of guests coming up in the future weeks where if we miss a week, we're going to use a filler episode. That was Buzz's idea, and I took it to heart and have lined up some things. Those recordings will be coming.
I have good ideas every now and then.
Yeah, actually, more often than not. I wish more people would listen to Buzz Brockway, but we're excited because Jason Pye is back.
Yeah.
From outer space. He just walked in with that look upon his face. We should have changed the locks.
Yeah,
we should have made him leave the key.
It's been the summer tour of fun in the Pye household. It started in Chicago, Newport, Martha's Vineyard, Disneyland, Disney World, and we just wrapped it up with Philadelphia.
It is the empty Jason Pye's checkbook tour of 2025.
Yeah, only 2 of those were work trips. Chicago and Newport were work trips. Everything else was like just me taking time away, which I wish I had done more of after the past.
So you're part of the club, and I guess Reagan, by extension, is part of the club that's been to Disneyland and Disney World.
Reagan didn't go with us. So Reagan didn't go with us to Disneyland. She didn't want to go.
Oh, really?
No, she didn't. She was like, it's too far away because it's on the other side. I mean, obviously, it's on the other side of the country. So it was just me and Emily.
Yeah.
Wow. So
I've been to both, but I've not been to Disneyland Paris or those other ones.
I've been to both too. But did you hear that somebody died on the Haunted Mansion yesterday?
Yes. Oh. So I heard about that. They had a heart attack, which is, it's weird because
not that scary.
No, especially during winter, because they change over, they close it for 2 weeks and they prep it for Christmas. Yeah. So they put in a lot of like the Nightmare Before Christmas stuff on the California ride. They don't do that in Orlando.
Mm-hmm.
So when we were there, it was normal, but yeah, it was that is my favorite, like one of my 2 favorite rides at Disney.
Mm-hmm.
And to hear that was obviously was very sad, but it's not that scary.
No, it's not that scary. But I will tell you this. I'm sitting on the couch last night with my daughter, and I read the headline. I said, oh, somebody died on the Haunted Mansion. And I said, I guess that makes 1,000. And if you've ever ridden the ride, you get that.
You're going to hell.
I am. Except for the fact that I have Jesus Christ advocating for me.
You know why I'm going to hell? I'm drinking Diet Pepsi from a Coke glass.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, I'm surprised it hasn't spontaneously combusted.
I actually had to stop buying canned Diet Pepsi because the price for a 12-pack went up to like $11.99.
Yeah, it's nuts.
Yeah, it's the aluminum tariffs.
Yeah,
tariffs.
And so I've actually started buying 2 liters now because the 2 liters are obviously like half that, if not more than half that. So it's like Emily's like, like I control the budget, and she'll order stuff. Like I put the stuff I want for lunches and stuff every week, but she comes in and adds like Reagan stuff and then things she wants to make for dinner. And we were hitting like $320 a week. And she's like, we got to scale this back. So I was like, well, I'll stop buying so many 12 packs of Diet Pepsi because I'll buy a week and a half's worth, and I drink a lot of soda, so it's a lot for me. But I've managed to cut our budget by about, I don't know, $40.
Well, you have a special greeting you want to give somebody too before we get started.
Yes. So today is October 9th. This is a very special day in our household. Happy 10th birthday, Reagan.
Yeah.
Happy birthday,
Happy
Reagan.
birthday, Reagan.
We're happy for you. And
we got to see her this morning. She was sweet as could be. And We went over to the bus. She's at her dad's this week. We went over to the bus stop and saw her. And
Nice.
she'll be back with us Monday all for a week. And we have 50, they have 50-50. So we get her half the time. So
Coming up on the show today, we're going to talk about the shutdown. That's why Pi has come back to tell us all the things. He's as our Washington correspondent. Why does Marjorie Taylor Greene love Obamacare? Never forget, Marjorie Taylor Greene is moments away from donning a pink knitted hat and becoming a member of Code Pink. Josh Hawley, the progressive. I'm not kidding. Josh Hawley is becoming more and more progressive. And we finally have an ambassador to the Bahamas and whatever else we want to talk about that comes to mind if we have time. Stay tuned.
Peach Pundit has an anonymous Patreon who would like to invite you to learn more about the Alzheimer's Association. The Alzheimer's Association leads the way to end Alzheimer's and all other dementia by accelerating global research, driving risk reduction and early detection, and maximizing quality care and support. No one should fight Alzheimer's alone. With your help, no one will. Learn more on their website, alz.org.
Golden Retriever Rescue of Atlanta, GRRA, is an all-volunteer, tax-deductible charitable organization. They are dedicated to providing veterinary care, comprehensive evaluation, and foster and adoptive homes to golden and Labrador retrievers who are abandoned, mistreated, neglected, or left in shelters throughout Georgia. We encourage you to visit their website grra.com and help connect people and dogs that need each other in their lives. You truly can make this world a better place by helping find homes of gold for these golden-hearted pups.
Those messages are brought to you by our Patreons. These are the people who voluntarily reach in their pocket every single month and give us just a few dollars by heading on over to patreon.com/peachpundit and helping us keep the lights on and the bits flowing over the internet straight into whatever device you're listening to this podcast on. We really appreciate them. If you'd like to join them, again, head on over to patreon.com/peachpundit. Sign up for one of those tiers today. At the $5 level, you get to join our signal chat of our little community that keeps growing. Seemingly every week, we're getting more people joining up, and we're really appreciative of them.
I don't think the kids say this anymore, but it's been lit.
It has been every day.
I don't know what the Gen Alpha word for lit is, but it's been
6, 7.
I thought it was Riz.
6, 7.
Okay, there you go. Yeah.
I don't know what 6, 7.
One of Reagan's friends came over and this has been months ago, and she was teaching me the words, and as
it's a process of continuous improvement, trying to learn the jargon of the youth in America.
No, it makes me want to kill myself. That was a joke.
Well, that's a great segue. How are you feeling about the government shutdown, Pi? Are you wanting to kill yourself?
I mean, pre-show, I noted that the shutdown is affecting our household in some way because Emily works for a federal contractor, and in previous shutdowns, they have not been affected by it. This time around, it's different. They are being affected by it. And for those of you who don't know, my wife works for the organization that manages the nation's organ transplant system. So they run the OPT, and she works for UNOS. So they furloughed a substantial portion of their staff. She has not been furloughed, but just the same, she doesn't know if she's working next week because it's just touch and go. But the shutdown itself, let me start up top. So what they're doing, obviously, this is a continuing resolution. This carries over spending or appropriations from FY 2024. So because
when somebody else was president.
Correct. When Joe Biden was president. So that's what they did in March of this past year. They funded the federal government with a full year CR. So that was carrying over FY 2024 spending levels, policies, things like that. And so this continues that through, I believe, November 21st, next month. So this is, so Republicans are correct in that this is a CR Democrats have voted for before.
Uh-huh.
I think Republicans are also correct in that they're saying that Democrats are the ones who are shutting down the government. That is true. However, I think people need to understand where Democrats are coming from on this, because there has been an unprecedented abuse of the appropriations process, not processes in terms of passing appropriations bills, but how appropriations are supposed to be handled. Article 1, Section 9 of the Constitution says no funding may be drawn from the Treasury without appropriation. Congress has expressed its will in the appropriations process. The administration has, according to the Government Accountability Office, ignored appropriations law. So there's a trust issue here that Democrats have.
Well, break that down. What specifically has the administration done to ignore it?
For those of you who may be more interested in detail on this and other things, you can go to my business website, exilepolicy.com, and check it out. The total, this was 100 days in, so this was in April. There was complaints that Democrats had that the administration was blocking at least $430 billion in funding that was owed to Americans or to just programs programmatically. And then Russ Vought and his administration or his OMB had run out the clock on, and I don't have specifics on this, but what they had done was he developed this idea called pocket rescissions, which is like we won't spend money before the end of fiscal year 2025, which was September 30th, or the end of the day, September 30th. So if we don't spend the money, we're running out the clock. Therefore, we will essentially veto this spending by not obligating it. Therefore, we don't spend the money. It's rescinded. And I don't have a lot of specifics on that. At least if there are specifics, I haven't seen them. But the Government Accountability Office, which is sort of like the watchdog for this, and it's a legislative branch agency, they have previously said, and this was like 2018, 2019, that pocket rescissions are unconstitutional because it violates appropriations law in the mandate that Congress has to obligate spending. In April, it was reported by Politico that the GAO had 39 investigations into impoundment actions. Impoundment is the process that they're placing a hold on obligating the funding. 39 investigations. I know of 4 where GAO has made a determination. And let me give you an example of what an impoundment is, though. So just a few months ago, Congress passed a rescissions bill where they rescinded about $10 billion. It was a little less than $10 billion, I think $9.7 billion in appropriations, mostly on the foreign policy side.
Yeah.
So that money had been impounded. And then the administration went through the process that's defined in the Impoundment Control Act of 1974 to have Congress formally rescind that spending. Mm-hmm. They haven't done that in other cases. So like there's a process they're supposed to follow.
And that was what was hammered out maybe in the dying days of Doge. And, that's kind of what Doge came up with.
Yeah.
And as you said, that was included the big, was that then the one big beautiful bill that did that, or was that before that? One of the other CRs. Anyway, but yeah, you're right. That was the only thing they've actually cut.
Yeah, it's really frustrating to see what that process be so disrespected, because it's one, and this is one thing I keep telling my conservative friends, and I've said this before on here, that every president takes the power of their predecessor as a floor and not a ceiling. And Ted Cruz recently said this as it relates to Brendan Carr's comments on Jim Kimmel. And I gave him credit. Like, he was absolutely right. You're creating an atmosphere where that floor has been raised now.
Yeah.
And you're creating a situation where this is going to be obviously abused by the next administration, whatever that administration is, whether it's
President AOC is going to come after Gutfeld in a heartbeat.
Well, and this is the thing. I remember when Kamala Harris ran for president the first time, she was talking about all the executive actions she wanted to take, and that it was horrifying.
Yes, to
hear that, because this was
I remember that debate. One debate she got rebuked by Biden, who said we can't do that, and her thing was, instead of saying we can't, let's say we can, Joe, and the crowd applauded and everything. And
I think it's important to also point out that even if you don't like the program, there is a process that is constitutionally designed that conservatives should want to support that process, that constitutional process of how law is made and how funds are appropriated. It's not an endorsement of these programs. It's pointing out that we are drifting further and further away from the constitutional model of how this is supposed to work.
So the violations of the Impoundment Control Act were related to electric vehicle charging funding, the Institute of Museum and Library Services, Head Start Act, and the Renew America Schools program. Haven't gotten a lot of attention. There have been some coverage of these, and those are the four I know of. GAO may have put out reports, because I wrote this memo in August.
Yeah.
So GAO may have put out reports since that show more violations. Some people would say that stuff's not a big deal. It is. When Congress appropriates funding, and there is court precedent on this. When Congress appropriates funding, like you have to provide it unless Congress says otherwise.
Right. So some of these programs I see are U.S. aid, peacekeeping, other foreign aid lines.
Mm-hmm. Are you talking about the rescissions bill?
I'm talking about the pocket rescissions, right?
Oh, okay.
Because there's two different paths that we're talking here. There was an actual rescission package that was passed in June. It was actually ratified by Congress, right?
Which had a lot of
the $9 billion,
which also had a lot of foreign policy funding in it.
Right. And HR 4 passed, implementing most of those rescissions. But in August of this year, the pocket rescission things that you're talking about, which is a gray area, if you will, or is that really what you're?
No, I mean, it's only the only way you could say it's a gray area is because the Supreme Court itself has not ruled on the issue.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But GAO, the Government Accountability Office, which has no mandate to stop the administration, it just can simply issue an opinion, has issued an opinion, and it did this 6-7 years ago, where it said that pocket rescissions are unconstitutional. And that's the opinion I have. Because I'm an Article 1. I don't want to use the term supremacist.
Stand, maybe. How about you're an Article 1 stand? Maybe the stand.
Yes, Article 1 stand. There's a reason the
outdated.
Right. The Article 1. It's the first branch. The legislative branch is the first branch,
and it's the only part of the U.S. Constitution, when describing the three branches of government, that instills all type of one power to one branch. All legislation must be done through the legislative branch.
And I think the argument, and I've written at length on this too at Excel Policy. I think the argument that Russ Vought has put forward, that because he's given basically a 4-pronged argument for the reason they can do this, I think it's very weak, and it defies court precedent, because the court has spoken on this in a couple of different cases, and one's the Train case from 1974. But the Impoundment Control Act didn't exist at the time. The other one was New York v. Clinton, which was the line item veto case. Mm-hmm. And the court was pretty clear. And even Scalia, who dissented in the case, had said that Congress has this power. So
But I mean, all of this they're doing all these things because you just can't get a bill through the Congress, right? I mean, that's why.
No, but that's,
So they're coming up with creative legal theories, creative policy theories because they can't get a bill through the Congress.
No, and I get it in some respects.
Right. And I'm not saying that that's appropriate to do. I'm just saying that's
right, but that's a feature, not a bug. It's a lawmaking process is supposed to be hard.
Yes,
it's not supposed to be easy, because you're supposed to build consensus.
Yeah.
This is the thing that drives me nuts, and I know we're going to get into some of Marjorie Taylor Greene's comments recently, but she's out there saying now, let's get rid of the filibuster, and she's even pointing out that Republicans have already started that process, and that is mostly true. They did it to handle nominations, which it's incredibly complicated to explain, but I'm happy to if anybody wants me to, but. And Trump has previously said he wants to get rid of the 60-vote threshold for cloture in the Senate. And, they have done that for nominations. But this process is not supposed to be easy. It's supposed to be difficult, because the expectation was you forge consensus. There was, whether you disagree with them or not, there was a series of compromises. And certainly I have problems with some of the compromises that were reached during the process of writing the Declaration of Independence, the process of the Constitution. There was consensus that were consensuses that were formed. And we can debate all day long the merits of those different consensuses that were reached. That is the process that we have. We'll go back to the shutdown. Right now, Democrats are denying Republicans votes to get cloture, to bring this bill to the Senate floor. There have been, I think, a total of 12 votes going back to, I think, the 16th, 18th of September on dueling bills. The Democrats' version of the CR, which includes a number of healthcare changes, is S-2882. The House passed CR is HR 5371. There have been 12 votes on that. There was another one last night. And the votes have largely unchanged. 3 Democrats have peeled off: Fetterman, Cortez Masto, and then Angus King, who's technically an independent, but he caucuses with the Democrats.
They've been that way since the beginning. They haven't peeled off, though, right?
Fetterman originally was the only one who has been that way since the beginning. Cortez Masto and King have changed their vote during the process, because they voted on September 30th for the House passed version, but on September 19th they voted against it. So that's why I say they've changed their vote. They peeled off. So, but the vote totals have largely unchanged, and since the 30th, or have completely unchanged since the 30th. Rand Paul's voting against the CR. I have a cat in here that I didn't realize was in here. And Democrats want, in exchange for voting for closure, they want these subsidies. Now, they're also talking about reversing the Medicaid cuts that were done in the OBBBA. That is not a prominent feature of their demands. The most prominent feature is extending the enhanced ACA marketplace subsidies. The premium tax credits is what we call them. But they don't want a year extension. They want permanent extension. And they want a negotiation on that, which Republicans aren't giving them. So yes, it's Democrats' fault the shutdown's occurring, but Republicans aren't talking to Democrats. And the blame game, and I know of one poll that I haven't put in here yet, but the blame game, a plurality of voters are blaming Republicans more than Democrats, but there's a sizable percentage of voters who are blaming both parties equally.
Sure.
And which is pretty interesting. The YouGov survey that was released earlier this week, 44% blame Trump and or Republicans, 35% blame Democrats. So that's a 9-point advantage for Democrats, and then 17% blame both parties. But when you get into independents, that's, you see independents are more likely to blame both parties. That same poll says 32% of independents blame both parties. Only 17% blame Democrats. 41% blame Republicans. And that's pretty consistent in the polling I've seen.
That makes sense to me in a way. I don't necessarily agree with it, and I'll get into that in a second. But it makes sense to me why somebody would blame both, because it seems like now that the Republicans are in power, they're just using the Democrats' playbook. And the Democrat playbook, we talked about this last week. I gave you 4 quotes from Charles Schumer about, we're not going to negotiate with a gun to our head. Like, let's reopen the government and we can have a conversation. And that was Charles Schumer since 2013 has been saying those things.
Why are you calling him Charles?
Chucky? What do you want me to call him?
Chuck.
I don't know why. I guess
he's being very formal. Very formal.
Well, is he trying to? Is he adopting Chuck in order to fend off the AOC?
I'm going to start using your full name, Scotland.
Well, I'm not opposed to
using
Scotland
my full Turner.
Name. Yeah. Well, I mean, use my full name.
Elizabeth Scotland Turner.
Yeah, something like that. I've heard many. Look, I'll also respond to MFer. So sorry, Miss Laura. You didn't call me whatever.
You don't have to say sorry, Miss Laura, if you didn't say it.
Have you ever met Miss Laura? I feel like I do have to say sorry, Miss Laura.
No, yeah. I've never met Miss Laura, but like
Buzz and I have, and let me tell you, I have to say sorry, Miss Laura.
Yeah,
she is absolutely a sweetheart.
I don't have to apologize to Reagan anymore when I use an adult word, as Emily and I call them. She's gotten used to it at this point.
Well, back to the original point, though, is Chuck, whoever, the Schumer, he's out there for the last 12, 13 years saying government shutdowns are bad. And what I haven't heard you say at this point, though, is why has he decided now is the time for him to adopt the Republican playbook of shut it down and maybe we can get something, which has never worked for Republicans.
I did see, before Jason gives us the real answer, I did see a great tweet. I think it was that guy Jarvis on Twitter, who's hilarious. I might be wrong, but I think he said, look, AOC could end this thing tomorrow by promising to run for president, and not for senator from New York.
Yeah, I mean, so let me first say I am shocked that there's gambling going on in this establishment. No, I mean, I'm shocked there's hypocrisy in politics. I mean, it's.
But what is driving him to adopt?
There's multiple things. There's multiple things. I think One is the fear of a primary challenge. He knows the base is pissed off at him, and because of going back to March, because he made a bunch of statements leading up to the CR passage in March, where they were essentially teasing a government shutdown, and then he flipped, and 8 or 9 other Democrats flipped, including Brian Schatz, who is the likely next in line to be majority or Democratic whip, and on making him on a path to become the next leader in the Senate for Democrats. So that's part of it. The favorability numbers for Democrats, it's a convenient talking point to talk about the favorability numbers. And then you look at the crosstabs, and the crosstabs are very telling. Democratic crosstabs are like a quarter of Democrats are unfavorable to their own party, which is what's bringing down Democratic numbers. And that is the progressive base pissed off because they don't see the Democratic Party fighting hard enough. So that's really what's driving that part of it. Then
it's the Democratic version of "but he fights," right?
Correct. Yeah.
You don't have to win, but you sure as heck better fight, right?
And I recognize that's a convenient talking point, but you've got to look into the data and see what the data are saying. If you look at the independent numbers between Democrats and Republicans, they're pretty close to the same. The other issue I mentioned is trust. There's a lack of trust between Democrats in this administration, and I think for good reasons. And I think people really need to understand. I realize that this is not a popular thing to say, but there are good reasons to put yourself in a Democrat's shoes and understand. No, I get it. I mean, they see a lot of their policy priorities being axed or cut, or the immigration raids, things like that, where they have real problems with that, and I get it. Do I think it justifies it? Not really. I don't like a government shutdown. I've always been that way.
Right. And some of that is, you lost the election. It's harder to implement your policy preferences when you're in the minority.
No, it is. You lost the election, but that doesn't mean you're completely powerless.
No, of course not.
There was, and that's the thing I keep hearing is Republicans won the election, therefore Trump has this ability to do whatever he wants. That is simply not how this works.
Well, because you still have
pass a bill.
You still have the inability to pass a bill through the Congress because the margins are so small.
Correct. And the only other thing I would add, and I've said this in multiple things I've written, and this is not going to matter 13 months. When voters go to the polls, the shutdown, historically, this is the thing you really have to understand. Historically, Republicans get the blame for a government shutdown. Historically, that has not mattered.
Right.
Well, to that point, Jason, let me ask you this. It was assumed in a previous shutdown that was more or less forced by Ted Cruz.
Like the first one, right?
2013. For 2013.
That it cost Ken Cuccinelli the governor's race in Virginia. I guess the question, you've got governor's races up in Virginia and New Jersey, right?
Virginia.
I mean, New Jersey. Kind of Republicans
there's another one too, like Mississippi.
Yeah, I think you're right. So I guess New Jersey is always New Jersey teases Republicans forever. Polling gets close and everybody goes, yeah, and then they get smashed.
Yeah.
Virginia, Winsome Sears is not running great campaign, and she's behind.
The only candidate who's worse than her is Jay Jones.
Well, that's a whole. Yeah, we could do a separate podcast on Virginia.
yeah, we could.
But I guess the point is that this might. Do you think, Jason, that it hurt Republican candidates in those off-year elections in 2013, and would it hurt them this time? Although it may not matter, you might not have won those races anyway. So. But I totally agree with your point. This time next year, nobody's going to be talking about when the real midterms are in fully on. Nobody's going to be talking about this.
Yeah, and so I've talked about this some with folks recently as well. And actually, I think I had a conversation with a friend of mine who works in a Republican leadership office where shutdowns at the end of the day don't really matter. The Cuccinelli thing I can't really describe. I think Cuccinelli was the most conservative candidate to run in Virginia in my memory for governor until Winsome Sears, who I think is arguably just as, if not more conservative. But Republicans that next cycle in 2014, they won seats in both chambers,
Right. Yeah.
including I think 9 in the Senate.
Right.
And then you look at the January 2018 shutdown, which was Democrats again. Well, not again, but again, I mean, plus this one. The 2013 shutdown was entirely Ted Cruz's fault. And that was over the ACA funding.
Mm-hmm.
But Democrats took over the House in the next cycle. But I think Republicans picked up a couple seats in the Senate. And then let's see, the December 2018, January 2019 Senate or shutdown, obviously, like, that was after an election. Not really much to say there, but Trump lost the election. But I think that had more to do with COVID than anything else. My point to all this is, voters are gonna, if you look in crosstabs of polling or look at most important issues, particularly amongst independents, it's one of, or there are 3 top issues they care about right now, and it's inflation and affordability, jobs in the economy, and healthcare.
Kitchen table issues.
And those issues right now are not good for Republicans.
Right.
Well, we're going to get into that and when we come back on the backside of this break. But I will say there are 2 Georgians right now who could help in this shutdown. And one of them is named John Ossoff, who's conveniently up for re-election next year. And the other one is Raphael Warnock. 2 of the votes that would be needed to end this shutdown, and they're on the wrong side of it. So when we talk about blame, here in Georgia, we have an opportunity to hold at least one of those accountable in the next 18 months. We'll see what happens, but I want to talk to you about our friends at Americans for Prosperity, because Americans for Prosperity Georgia champions economic freedom and individual liberty across this state. They advocate for lower taxes, less government spending, and regulatory reform while mobilizing citizens to engage in the legislative process. Beyond economic issues, AFP Georgia is committed to more choice in K-12 education for all students and removing government barriers in healthcare like Certificate of Need. Learn more about our friends at Americans for Prosperity by visiting their website at ga.americansforprosperity.org. Thank you to Tony West and our friends at AFP for being a partner level Patreon. Again, you can be a Patreon by heading on over to patreon.com/peachpundit and signing up for one of those tiers.
Conservatives Concerned is a network of political and social conservatives who question the alignment of capital punishment with conservative principles and values. Our programs include educating conservatives about the failed death penalty system and mobilizing them to bring about its end. We come to this issue for a variety of reasons. Some believe that small government and the death penalty don't go together, especially when we compare the high costs of capital punishment to life without possibility of release. Some don't trust the state to get it right. We already know that some innocent people have been sentenced to death, and for others, it may already be too late. Some believe that the death penalty contradicts our values about protecting life. Find out more at conservativesconcerned.org.
Yesterday on the X, formerly known as Twitter, Patricia Murphy over at the AJC tweeted something that caught my eye because all of a sudden, all these lefties in the media love themselves some Marjorie Taylor Greene. Never forget, Marjorie Taylor Greene is just moments away from donning a pink knitted hat and joining Code Pink. She tweeted, probably the most fascinating person in politics right now as shutdown lingers, Marjorie Taylor Greene splits with GOP leaders on health care. I tweeted back to her, there is absolutely nothing fascinating about this. I'm just surprised that Marjorie Taylor Greene would be the new darling of the left. I'm not at all surprised because she's breaking ranks with Republicans, and Republicans have traditionally tried to, well, they've made half-hearted attempts at ending Obamacare, and also known as the ACA. And Marjorie Taylor Greene has taken to the Twitters to say that her kids are going to see huge increases in their healthcare premiums, and therefore we should just deal with this whole Obamacare thing by giving in, essentially. I'm paraphrasing lightly, but it just is further proof to me that Marjorie Taylor Greene doesn't have any type of ideological compass that drives her decision making. Mm-hmm. She is acting on feeling and not evidence. And it happens over and over and over again. But as Buzz likes to say, at least she fights. At least she fights.
That's why she
Buzz-
got elected, because she fights.
Right.
They didn't
Buzz,
really care what she fought about or whether she was successful or any of that stuff. Just, she fights.
Exactly. I mean, Buzz, how do you feel about the evolution of Marjorie Taylor Greene? Or is she evolving at all? Is this who she's always been?
She doesn't call it breaking with Trump, but that's really what she's doing, right? I mean, Trump, when this shutdown comes to an end, there's going to be some kind of compromise hammered out, and Trump is going to be heavily involved in it because he's going to have to sign the bill, right? So she's breaking with Trump is what she's doing, but she doesn't want to call it that. And I don't, yeah, Scott, she's always been an outsider. She wrapped herself in the MAGA flag, but there is no, that this gets back to part of the big problem with MAGA and populism. The only guiding principle is attack whoever's in charge, and that's what she's doing. So I stumbled across in my YouTube feed this morning Emily Jasinski, who I think she used to be at the Federalist. Now she's at Unheard, and she has a podcast called Undercurrents. And she said this is the beginning of the dam breaking in MAGA. And so I listened to like 3 minutes of it, and I thought, I really don't care that much, so I'm not going to waste an hour. But I don't know. I mean, I don't know that this is the beginning of a dam break, that MAGA's somehow suddenly going to abandon Trump, or that Marjorie Taylor Greene is going to lead people out into some sort of political desert or anything. But I think she had a chance to be something because Speaker Johnson gave her this subcommittee, this DOJ subcommittee, and if she wanted to, she could really make that into something important and go find some freaking government waste and go fight for it. Instead, they're looking at cloud seeding and cloud seeding and weather control and all this. Yeah, not crop dusting, the cloud seeding and weather control and all this kind of crap. So
So, Jason, one of the claims that she's made is that the media likes to portray her as being isolated and without any type of allies. With your DC insider knowledge, who are Marjorie Taylor Greene's allies in Congress?
So I don't want to particularly name names, but I think one that is obvious is Thomas Massie, who is himself an outsider and isolated him.
But why do I like Thomas Massie and I don't like Marjorie Taylor Greene?
Massie doesn't have a history of making anti-Semitic statements. And
that's just one thing.
Yeah, that's one thing. He doesn't have present issue on the Epstein files excluded. Massie doesn't have a history of just going out to get, that's not the way I mean that. Massie has always been out there and has always made news, but he doesn't run for the microphones. Like he's not an attention seeker per se. He gets attention because of the nature of some of his votes and some of his sassy tweets, things like hashtag sassy with Massie. But I think it's a different type of way he gets attention than how Greene gets it. But I do disagree with you, Scott. Greene, I think right now is fascinating to watch because of the way she is publicly breaking from the administration. And I think the reason I do think it's fascinating is because I think she's terribly disillusioned. And I think that's evident. I think she might have even said that.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think there's a reason for her disillusionment that is more obvious to me, knowing the Georgia political landscape. And
oh yeah,
the reasons why she's saying, the reasons why she's criticizing Speaker Johnson are not the reasons she's disillusioned. She doesn't have a boogeyman to attack right now because her party is in power, so she has to attack the leader. But the reason why she's disillusioned is she got passed over for governor. Mm-hmm. She didn't get the Trump endorsement for governor. She was told not to run for U.S. Senate, and she's jilted.
I think that's part of it. I think that how big of a part of that is debatable. And I'm not saying I disagree with you. I do think it's part of it, but I also think she's seeing how business is conducted. She's seeing, she's getting pressure. Like she signs on the discharge petition for the bill that would release the
The
Epstein files. It's technically it's a rule, but it would start the debate on the bill. And she's saying she's getting pressured to get off that, and it's the most pressure she's ever gotten on an issue, and that's coming directly from the administration. And she's one of those people who for years said, I thought this was like something we supported, like, you know, putting this information out in the open.
Yeah.
And so she's realizing that there is a lot of, again, I'm shocked there's hypocrisy that happens in politics, or I'm shocked we don't keep our promises. But yeah, and one thing she did say, you know, because she's one of the people who's saying that she wants to extend the ACA subsidies, you know, and she's, you know, this is part of her thing. We should abolish the filibuster to do this, a legislative filibuster to do this. You know, that is a $350 billion hit over 10 years. And that doesn't include the other things that the two other things that Democrats want to also roll back as part of that, which is a rule related to the marketplaces from HHS, and then repealing some sections of the tax bill related to the marketplaces. All told, you're talking about, you know, over 600 billion, close to $700 billion over 10 years. That is, and you know, Emily sent this to us yesterday, and on the text thread I had with her brother. And I was like, what's another $350 billion amongst friends? I do think Republicans, again, I'm shocked that Republicans or any political party is hypocritical, but, you know, them going out and complaining that Democrats want to add $1.5 trillion to the budget deficit is remarkably full of shit.
Yeah.
Sorry, Miss Laura.
Yeah.
Because after passing a tax bill that adds $4.1 trillion to the budget deficit over the next 10 years, and will probably add more because of the temporary provisions that are going to expire over the course of the bill, it's going to be closer to $5 trillion.
Yeah, I mean, I think Jason hit on a great point. Her being willing, I mean, what she's signaling there is, I'm willing to give the Democrats one of the big points of their, you know, that's blocking them from reopening the government, right? Mm-hmm. And in a tight House, that's a big deal.
Yeah. No, unfortunately for her, it's over in the Senate right now.
Yeah, but if it's amended, it's going to go back to the House. Mm-hmm. If it's amended, the thing that I said in a post recently over Exile Policy was like, the Democrats have put themselves in this no-win position. A win, like a walk, is as good as a hit. Like, they just need to not lose.
Yeah, they need to get something, right?
And whether it's a passage of a CR with amended to continue the subsidies, or some deal that's worked out that they'll have a vote on the subsidies, that's a win for them. And well, I guess it would be a win for them. But like, that's a high bar for a win. But right now, as Marjorie Taylor Greene is pointing out, like, she's saying it's the number one issue she's hearing from her constituents on. And that for a rural district in Northwest Georgia, that's a big deal. And look, I'm against extending the subsidies. You know, $350 billion just for the subsidies is a lot of money. But, and again, that's over 10 years. But, you know, one thing she is saying, this is a very rural district. This is a very white district. And if she's saying she's getting this from her constituents, that is a signal that not extending these might actually be worse for Republican voters. This is their base, potentially.
Yeah, it reminds me of that, I guess it was the 2012 campaign where, was Ron Paul run that year? But anyway, I think the camera goes and the reporter runs up to this guy wearing a Ron Paul T-shirt. Why you support Ron Paul? Because he's going to cut government, everything but Social Security and Medicaid. So...
Right.
There's a heck of a lot of Republicans who get Medicaid.
One of the things I want to remind people, and I've said this in the past on here, is that we are talking about 26% of all federal spending.
Yeah.
Right.
This is
entitlement, stupid.
This is what Congress is arguing over. And if you look at the top five federal programs, because we just got the report yesterday from CBO on the final budget deficit for FY 2025. Budget deficit was $1.8 trillion. They actually spent more money this past year than they did the year before. Not much more, but a little bit more. It's 1 and 2, Social Security.
Yeah.
Interest on the debt. Interest on the debt this year was over $1 trillion for the first or second time in history.
I mean, right. I mean, we can rant about it all day, but at some point in time, there's going to be a reckoning coming because there's
Mhm.
no political will to actually address the budget deficit, the federal debt, and the causes of those things.
It's getting talked about more, which is something that does brighten my spirits, and it's getting talked about more on both sides. But the thing you get into, Buzz, where you talk about that Ron Paul voter, you can't get the third highest spend in is either Medicare, excuse me, or defense. I don't remember which one. They're close. I think it's Medicare. But when you start talking about addressing those programs, I mean, we know Republican voters tend to skew older, so they are the people who are going to benefit from those programs more.
Yeah.
And it's like I remember the signs back during when ACA was going through it, the Tea Party protests and a town hall protest. It's like, no Obamacare, hands off my health care. But at the same time, they're complaining about Medicare cuts, and it's like the ACA, obviously, massive government intervention in American healthcare. Particularly in the individual market. It drove up the cost of healthcare. Everybody knows this. But Medicare is a single payer system. It is that socialized medicine that you always complain about.
Right.
And the hospital insurance trust fund is rapidly going broke. It reaches insolvency, I think, in 2035. So they're in OASI, the Social Security side, I think 2032. It's now the fourth quarter of 2032 is the projected date of insolvency. So these programs have to be handled in the next 10 years, or there's going to be a bailout from Congress.
Well,
and
right. Or what happens is a Chris Christie type figure emerges who has to come in and do the massive cuts, and he looks at you and says, look, you can't blame me for all the bad decisions all my predecessors made. We failed to love him or not, but that's what Chris Christie did.
Well, David Cameron,
he had to look at the teachers and say, you guys have been given all kinds of goodies and they don't exist anymore. We can't do it. We're broke.
David Cameron did the same thing in the UK when he came into power. The thing is, I've heard progressives use the term austerity, like that the Budget Control Act was austerity, or the spending caps enacted under the Fiscal Responsibility Act are austerity. It is not austerity.
No.
Austerity would be what Greece has had to do, or what the UK had to do. It is massive cuts to social programs without structural reforms.
Go put all your money in Bitcoin and hide it in your safe.
Or austerity cuts
wallet.
in Georgia happened here when Buzz was in the legislature before I arrived. We were still doing austerity cuts, and there were school systems that were not able to have a 180-day school calendar. That's what austerity looks like.
Yeah. And there's one thing I do want to also note real fast, and because I know I think Scott, you have like another topic you want to discuss. There was a statistic that Eric the Younger on a text thread sent around yesterday that was like it was insanely concerning, and once again I'm having a hard time finding it. It essentially said like 80% of the GDP growth right now in the United States is coming from investment into AI. So for those of you who are around during the .com bubble, actually, 40% of U.S. growth this year. Sorry, 40% of U.S. GDP growth this year is AI. AI companies account for 80% of the gains in U.S. stocks in 2025. So what we are talking about with that is, and for those of you who are around during the .com bubble, you know how the overinvestment into .com websites and just led to this. This recession. This is going to be worse.
When you start seeing a pets.com like ad for AI on TV with cute sock puppets touting some AI thing, now that's the time to get out because the bubble's there. The
I hate
bubble's
to tell
about to
you this,
explode.
but I'm already seeing stuff like that on targeted ads based upon everything from bookkeeping software to medicine management.
Every company, because like having my own business, I get like a lot of emails about our use Google's AI assistant, use Microsoft's AI assistant. I use ChatGPT a lot for research, and like that bubble, when it bursts, we are so screwed.
I don't know what it's going to look like.
Yeah, I mean it's gonna burst. It's inevitable.
Right.
But like
it was easy to sort of see the slow motion train wreck of the .com bubble bursting. this one's a little harder to identify because it's such a new frontier
right
in what is
I mean,
possible. You have people using it to help them write books, to do their research. It's becoming ingrained in everyday life. And as it becomes more and more accepted for people to use as a tool, there's going to be more and more need for hardware and energy consumption.
Well,
and there's environmental impacts on what it looks like.
The energy consumption thing, that's boiling up here in Chesterfield County, Virginia.
We have a Hill study committee dedicated to that in Georgia. It's right now. I mean,
people are freaking out about their electricity prices going up.
Right. Well, that's part of the debate. We have a Public Service Commission election coming up in just a couple weeks, and it's a big part of the debate is how are you going to manage this?
Yeah.
But
I mean,
we got to move on.
Just
final thought, Buzz.
A quick point is going back to the .com bubble, there were real advances in technology and the use of technology that happened there. The bubble part came on the investment side of things, and people lost a lot of money because they invested in things that failed. Some good ideas failed, but a heck of a lot of bad ideas failed. And that's
some of those ideas were just simply ahead of their time, like Webvan.
Yeah, now it happens, right?
Right.
It's right. But right, so it's the free market at work. Good ideas are going to advance, good uses of AI, things that make life easier and better, et cetera, et cetera. Dumb ideas are going to explode and fail and blow up in your faces. And that's the way it goes.
I don't think I've made it very clear that I'm a free market guy on this podcast or in my everyday life. I have. I'm just kidding. Everybody knows I'm a free market guy. So every time I see somebody who labels themselves as a conservative and adopt a progressive standpoint, I get concerned. And today's example of that is the senator from Missouri, Josh Hawley, who yesterday in a committee hearing said that he actually tweeted this. Corporations like Amazon want to pay their workers or hire, corporations like Amazon don't want to pay their workers or hire American workers. Last year, Amazon CEO made $40.1 million. How much did the average Amazon worker make? Only $37,181. How are you supposed to raise a family on $37,181? Pie. Am I wrong to be concerned that we continue to see a lack of free market folks with a Republican label next to their name?
Yeah, no, you should be concerned because the Republican Party, and this is part of the sort of, there's the MAGA crowd, and then there's like this national conservative crowd, which I think there's some overlap, but I think there are fundamental differences between the two of them. The MAGA crowd tends to just operate mostly under this own the libs mantra. Like, it's that's pretty much what MAGA stands for. The National Conservative is like the more intellectual side of the conservative, what is today's conservative movement, and they are they're dangerous. And like if you're a conservative, like this is who has taken over. And if you're a more traditional conservative, whether you're part of the traditional three legs of the conservative stool, you're
a free con.
Yeah, I mean, I signed
it too.
Yeah, I signed it. So
I'm offended nobody came to me and asked me to sign it.
You can email and ask to be included. But like it's frustrating. Like there was Hawley did something a couple months ago, and I wrote something about it again over at the business website, where he had proposed essentially like a rebate from the tariff revenue.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was based largely on like the checks that went out during the pandemic. It was $600 per adult and dependent child. There are some income limitations, but would it just be easier to get rid of the fucking tariffs? Like, sorry, Ms. Laura. It's like, this is stupid. It's like stupid. Like that idea is dumb. Like, you're essentially conceding the argument that Americans are experiencing higher costs or higher prices. So what's really going to help with inflation? Let's give them more money by rolling them back and then making it something that they're going to come to expect. You're essentially creating or laying the groundwork for a universal basic income. And I'm in the middle on that. I can see the benefit of it. I can see the reason we wouldn't want to do it. That being said, like this idea, this thing that he's saying, like it's a rhetorical talking point that doesn't make any sense, because you're not talking about annual household income. We know annual household income is much higher than $37,000. We don't know the age ranges of the people who are making that kind of money, or what age demographic they're in. Entry level workers, I'm sure, would make a lot less money than someone who is my age working at Amazon, who is probably somewhere in middle management at this stage in my life. Like, it's not like, it doesn't tell us a lot, and it's a cheap rhetorical talking point that misses a lot of detail and other data that would really tell us a lot more. Am I offended that someone makes however many $1 million a year? No, I'm not, because they have decisions of a company that has a market worth of close to $1 trillion.
Yes, and that's the missing point.
And they're providing jobs to people.
Right. These are the job creators. The value that they create for our society is far greater than the guy who is moving packages around a warehouse. And it's equivalent to saying the guy who's selling beer in a stadium and he's part of the experience when you go to an NFL game.
Yes.
But Dak Prescott makes $60 million a year. Right. And
He ain't
so are you
worth it,
trying to say that the Amazon employee who makes $38,000 a year is on par with the guy who's making $40 million a year running a company that has a market cap of $1 trillion? It's insane to me to have a conservative, quotes, rabbit ears. That was not a Greg Dolezal reference. Rabbit ears around saying there's a disparity here. This is we're watching in real time Josh Hawley adopt progressive talking points. And it is deeply concerning as a conservative to have a rabbit ears Republican making these arguments.
Should be, because I sit here and think about it when we were talking about this. It's like, I think of back during the Tea Party days when people were holding up signs that said, "Who is John Galt?" And you're targeting the people who, and look, I'm not going to sit here and argue the business ethics of Amazon or anybody else. Like, that's not my role here. My role here is to provide political commentary. And I go back and think about those signs. Do you know what that, like, if you were one of those people, do you know what that meant? It meant when an economy, when politicians target the people in the economy who produce,
right,
who provide jobs, who pay taxes, who do all these different things, they are eventually going to give up. And I was thinking about this yesterday. The whole goal of we're all middle-aged white men, so, but we have worked our lives to see a measure of professional success. If one of us came up with an idea, or if my business, for example, takes off and gets ton more clients, I wouldn't necessarily see more income. And you start thinking about that rhetoric where Democrats say, well, we just want to raise taxes on people earning $400,000 a year. Like, I hate to tell you, I don't know if you guys realize this. Like, yeah, $400,000 a year is a lot of money to someone who makes $50,000 or $100,000 a year, but it ain't that much,
especially when you have tariffs.
Yeah,
but look, Hawley was wrong. He said the average pay is $37,000. That's not. The average salary, the average is $74,000.
Really?
I think if according to ZipRecruiter. Now look, but the key, and the key thing he misses here is at a place like Amazon, you can start at the bottom and you can work your way up to where you're making much, much more. So, yeah, this is the danger of populism, the danger of this populist nationalist movement that has taken over the Republican Party. Is it destroys rather than creates.
And the other thing too,
I'll do you one better because this builds off what Buzz just said. According to PayScale, Amazon's average base salary is about $98,354 a year.
And they, for their entry-level workers, will put them through college.
Yeah.
So they can improve themselves. There are people who work at Amazon warehouses in Georgia right now that are getting their college education while working full-time for Amazon. Why are you picking on Amazon? The only reason why you're doing it is you're creating a straw man or boogeyman so that you can attack and say, I'm for the little guy. Yeah. It is the very epitome of progressive policy.
No, it is. It is 100%.
why are Republicans abandoning all the things that have traditionally made America great?
We're in a
I
post-conservative world.
I have to keep going. For Amazon hourly fulfillment workers, Amazon reports the average pay, base plus benefits, is over $29 an hour, which equates to roughly $60,000 a year for full time. As more general estimate up from ZipRecruiter puts the average Amazon salary at $74,619. So a rough all-in average is probably somewhere between $80,000 and $120,000 a year, depending on heavily on the job type and location. First of all, his facts are wrong. Secondly, yes, Scott, you're absolutely right. This is the danger of the burgeoning populist movement inside the conservative movement, which is led by think tanks like the
Heritage Foundation.
Well, Heritage has moved into it, but they weren't one of the originators of it. They have tried to latch onto it to remain relevant.
Orrin Cass, right? Orrin Cass is out there with all this kind of stuff.
American Compass is one of them. The name is, I'm losing I can't think of the name of the other one that's big. They used to have an office in Hall of the States. They may still, but I can't think of it off the top of my head. But it's blending economic progressivism with social conservatism. It's basically, but the thing is,
somewhere Barack Obama is smiling.
But here's the thing.
So is Bill Clinton.
Yes.
Economic progressivism. The economic progressivism isn't in keeping with, like, because they tend to practice a very strong faith, especially Catholic faith. But it's not the sort of view of the Bible, because the Bible, particularly the New Testament, talks also about taking care of foreigners and immigrants, and so it's not that. It's very heavily nationalist.
Yeah,
very heavily nationalist.
Yes, which is bad.
I don't know how to fix that, but I am pissed off that people like me who've maintained my ideology get labeled rhino all the time. I'm not the rhino here. I have maintained my allegiance to my ideology, and regardless of which power is in, or which party is in power, I don't trust any of them. And they're continuing to show why I shouldn't. Because you have people like Marjorie Taylor Greene and Josh Hawley who project I'm this great conservative, but are willing to abandon at their convenience those types of pillars of the ideology that makes up conservatism. And where do people like me go? If you're listening to the show and you're a fellow conservative, or if you are a populist, say you're completely bought into whatever Josh Hawley or whatever Marjorie Taylor Greene says, educate me on why I'm the rhino. I invite that conversation. I invite being educated on why I'm the rhino, when these people very clearly 10 years ago, we would have been labeling them rhino. And I want to say just one last thing about that is I hate the word rhino because the Republican Party is not monolithic. We've always been, we call it the big tent, but it's a coalition of different groups that have different values on specific things, and we try to get along and agree on things. We have social conservatives, we have libertarians, we have fiscal hawks, and we're all trying to pull towards this idea of limited government. When you have a state senator with eyes and ambitions to do something else, maybe run for president, maybe run governor of his own state, I don't know what his ambitions are, talking in progressive terms like this, that's the rhino. That's the person who has abandoned all the things. I can't get behind anything he's saying there.
I wrote a piece recently about the death of conservative libertarian fusionism, because that was something that I had to, when I ghosted a book back in 2020, and I had to make an argument that fusionism is a good thing and that it still exists. And I remember it was the only thing in the book I wrote that I didn't agree with.
But it wasn't your book, right?
But it wasn't my book. I ghosted it for someone, but it gave me the opportunity to revisit a conversation I had with David Bose in this piece I recently wrote, where David, the late David Bose, rest in peace, where he told me that, and this was like 2011, 2012, something like that, where he was telling me that, or 2013, he was telling me that he thought the fusionist experiment was over then. And not only that, it had been over for a while, and that libertarians, small L, philosophical, should seek to form alliances with anyone who wants to work with us. And it's like an issue by issue basis. So we want to work conservatives to cut the size and scope of government. At least that's how it used to be, right? We should. But if we want to work with progressives to reform surveillance laws or to fight for at least some free speech issues, and well,
civil asset forfeiture reform.
Yeah, I mean, and that we should, and I really, here I am now 12 years later or however long later, really taking that to heart. And because that's really how I've sort of developed my career, going back to my time at FreedomWorks, where I tried to reach across the aisle, and because I didn't have a partisan lean, I was more right than I am now, particularly on a few issues, social issues. But I've always considered myself like socially inclusive. But it speaks to me more now because I think, because going back to what Buzz said about fiscal issues, like there's no way it gets fixed without both sides working together.
Yeah.
And that's going to be trade-offs, because to quote Thomas Sowell, there are no solutions, there are only trade-offs.
Exactly.
I love that quote. I love it. Thomas Sowell, one of the great thinkers of our time, probably one of the more influential individuals on me and reading his stuff. If you haven't read about his philosophy on policy trade-offs, he has a wonderful book out. It's been out since like early 80s or something. Go look it up. Last topic, quick hick style, presidential term. There you go. There's a book. How Countries Go Broke, The Big Cycle by Ray Dalio. We have mentioned this many times on the podcast. We don't often advocate for Democrats on this podcast, but we also felt like Calvin Smiley totally got screwed by Joe Biden when he was told he should quit the legislature. Just as a context, I'm about to turn 50 next year, early next year. And Calvin Smiley was elected before I was born. Okay?
You old.
Right. Well, I'm not as old as the amount of time that Calvin Smiley spent in the Georgia House of Representatives. But he resigned his seat so that he could become the ambassador at first to the Dominican Republic. He was never confirmed for that. They shifted him to become the ambassador to the Bahamas. That was never filled. And he was never confirmed. So he gave up his seat in the Georgia legislature. And the Georgia legislature, who's run by Republicans, honored him earlier this year by hanging his portrait in the hallway, right as you walk into the speaker's anteroom in the House chambers. He's well respected, well loved by everybody, because especially in his last 10, 15 years, he genuinely wanted to work across the aisle on as many things and was seen as a resource for Republicans to try to tamp down some of the worser instincts of the left as they got more and more aggressive in the Georgia House of Representatives. He was the elder statesman. Well, we finally have an ambassador to the Bahamas, and his name is, drumroll, Herschel Walker.
Yeah. I mean,
Buzz.
That sounds like a fun gig. I mean, being the ambassador, if you're going to be an ambassador and you got to spend a lot of your own money, I mean, there's a whole lot worse places to be ambassador.
Have we tried to take it over as a state yet?
I mean,
Don't ask Buddy Carter.
Okay.
Oh,
that's right. He has that stupid bill.
The green, red, white, and blue land if Greenland becomes a U.S. territory.
I mean, how sad must it be that you have to drop to like that level of stupid to try to win a primary?
Well, Buddy is now plastering the inside of my mailbox with mailers.
oh yeah.
He's come out of whatever hiding he is, and he's now trying to introduce himself to
they
Georgia voters.
Since we've been on his I got an email from his campaign saying they raised $1 million in the last quarter, and they have 3.9 million in cash on hand.
Yeah, look at this giant mail piece.
Yes.
The MAGA warrior Buddy Carter, gigantic 11 by 17 mail piece that Buzz just hung up for our listeners who don't. But
more than once
this
a
isn't
week
really
now.
about Buddy Carter. It's about Herschel Walker.
Herschel. And Bill White named ambassador. Where was he? Let me see.
Well,
Rolls
congratulations to
real
Herschel
quick.
Walker. Hopefully you're a better ambassador than you were Senate candidate.
Bill White who led
Belgium.
the succession of the failed succession of Buckhead from the city of Atlanta is now
That
the
guy?
Yes.
ambassador to Belgium.
Yes. So Buckhead, the dream of a Buckhead city dies.
The guy who favorably quotes VDARE?
Yeah.
Like a notoriously white supremacist organization.
We have just made Pi's blood pressure rise, and I'm concerned about that. So
Sorry, Jason.
we're going to let him engage in some breathing exercises before we can.
I didn't even see that.
Sorry,
No,
Miss
like
Laura.
Yeah, that's in the-
I don't
yeah.
I don't pay attention. I don't pay a ton of it. The only nomination I've been really paying attention to is Billy Kirkland.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Billy
I mean,
Kirkland
it's
also got the.
Yeah, it's a whole slew of them, right?
Yeah.
They confirmed a bunch of them, 5147, and
Yeah,
I don't know, Raul was
for those of you who
was highlighting a few.
For those of you who
So-
don't know, Billy and I went to the same high school, and he was like a year ahead of me. And it's good to see someone from back home, particularly back home,
Yeah.
not just Georgia, but like
Good guy.
McDonough doing well.
Yeah,
No,
he's
I-
not
no,
an
where was-
ambassador. Just for clarity, he is
No.
the assistant secretary of
Indian Affairs.
Indian Affairs.
Yeah. So yeah, and Billy, for those of you who don't know, like he's proud Navajo. I think that's what he used to say. But Billy, love that dude. Don't always agree with him, but love him. He's just a wonderful guy. But Bill White,
Hey, he's out of here, so
Yeah,
he's busy doing other stuff, not messing with us.
that's gonna do it for
Georgians, I
our
mean.
show. We're glad to have Pi back. Pal, you coming back for more?
The-
Or are you? This is.
I mean, I think we'll just leave it on a you guys, if you guys ask me basis. Like I'll see what the schedule is. Emily has already texted just a moment ago, FYI, talking about the blood pressure. I hear Jason yelling, and I can't tell if it's happy animated, happy/animated yelling, or pissed off yelling.
Yeah, so I get right. Emily made 86 this whole idea of Jason coming back. Anyway,
Yeah, no, I mean
we're trying to raise your blood pressure. It's just life today, right?
I will say with the amount, the good news is with the amount of travel we've done, that's coming to an end. I think Thanksgiving's the next week we have travel planned. But the just ask and we'll see.
Yeah.
Evenings are becoming increasingly harder
Yeah.
to do because of when the kid's here. We've actually gotten to a point where we set our phones down and try to spend time with her. That's her love language. So yeah.
Yep.
That's. Aw,
Well, glad you
look
can
at
make it now because we needed this update because it's a huge story. The shutdown is a huge story. It's getting progressively worse by the day. The pain is spreading. So glad you could come and.
No, thanks
Yeah.
for having me.
I don't know if you listened to the podcast when you're not away, but we actually said the words last week. We wish Pi was here to talk about this. So
Yes.
we are really.
We
glad
didn't know
that
what we
you're
were
here.
talking about, so we just made up stuff.
I mean, this week it's been a little slower because Reagan's not here, but like just ask. I mean, we'll see what I can do. Yeah.
Well, we're glad you're here today. We're also glad that we have people who rock, who make our podcast possible. Without them, we wouldn't be here. And they go to patreon.com/peachpundit. They sign up for one of our tiers. We're building an awesome community in our little Signal chat. It's the best $5 a month you can spend just to get into the Signal chat. I guarantee you, just like Gladiator, you will be entertained. But it wouldn't be possible without Bill Werkheiser, Bethany Ballard, Bo Brannon, James Hall, Justin Wright, Ken Pullen, Mike Buchert, Ron Daniels, Ryan Graham, Stuart Wilkinson, Reed Powell, Amy Davis, Colin Martin, Eric Johnson, Jeff Cobble, Hank Burnham, John Vestal, Jordan Reed, Kenyatta Mitchell, Lawton Sack, Ryan Purvis, Sam Thomas, Sergio Ortega, Shannon Fergusons, Tony West, and our friends at Americans for Prosperity, our anonymous Patreon, who wants you to learn more about the Alzheimer's Association, and Robert Lee, our friends at Lee 6 Media, and Brett Harrell and our friends at Conservatives Concerned. Thank you all for being Patreons. We'll catch you next time.
Go Jackets.